Hey everybody, welcome back. Ever since the Ninja Slushi came out a couple of months ago, I've been bombarded in the comments by people asking what kind of sweeteners will work that aren't sugar. That's a tougher question to answer because the fact is that most sugar substitutes won't slush like sugar does. Which ones will work? Watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. Okay, the ingredient list for this test is going to be super simple. All we're going to be doing is trying to make some lemonade. So all I need is water, some lemon juice that doesn't include any type of added sugar so it doesn't skew the results, and a whole shitload of sweeteners. I've got blue agave, plain old regular granulated sugar, some aspartame. This is the Kroger branded version of Equal. You'll probably know it better that way. Some saccharin, or you might know it as Sweet and Low. Sucralose, otherwise known as Splenda, erythritol, xylitol, monk fruit sweetener, stevia, and last but not least, allulose. Okay, the first one up is going to be our baseline sugar. I'll be real surprised if this doesn't work. I'll be starting with 22 ounces of water, and I'm going to top this off to about 30 ounces, and then I'm going to mix in 1 cup of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. A little taste test. Okay, that's the mix we want. Perfect. So just remember, everything's gonna get 22 ounces of water, 8 ounces of pure lemon juice, and a cup of sweetener. Now we're gonna pour our mix into the machine. Close that up. And let's see, we are going to set our machine just to slush. I'm gonna leave it on level 3 right here and see how our baseline turns out. If I want it to be a little bit thicker after that, I'll crank it up a tiny bit. Okay, our frozen lemonade with the sugar is done. I did crank this up 1, so instead of being on level 3, it's on level 4. Level 3 was okay, but level 4 looks better, so here we go. Probably should have left it on 3. Kind of over frozen, huh? I don't know. I like it this way though. Let's see the texture. That looks really good. Mix is really nice. You can see it's not breaking down at all, so that is a good slushie. Kind of came out of there a little bit slow, but I don't care. And how's it taste? Delicious, obviously. Brain freeze. All right, next we're moving on to blue agave. I thought about doing honey also, but honey is really thick and it doesn't absorb really well in the cold liquid. The blue agave is much thinner, so it should mix in a lot easier. There's our water, our lemon juice, and our agave. You're supposed to use a little bit less of this than you would of sugar, so this is gonna end up being really sweet, but you know, I don't really care if it's overly sweet. We're just trying to see if this works. Interesting to see how this tastes with the agave in it. Interesting. Let's give her a twirl. Okay, we're going back in here again. I really need to start using a bigger container for this. Whoa, making a mess. And we'll get her started up again, and we'll set it at that level 4 right off the bat. Okay, the agave nectar version is finished. You can see that's slushed up pretty good. You might notice that at the same freeze level, the look of it is a lot different. It's a little bit thinner than the regular sugar version too. You can see that. This might actually be a little bit closer to what a lot of people like though. Yes, you can get this thicker if you want to, just like the sugar, but it's gonna take a higher freeze level to do that. But as far as the test goes, we know it works because it is slushing this. I didn't think I was gonna like this that much, but you could really taste that agave in there. I'd recommend you try this, it's pretty good. Okay, next on our list is the Equal equivalent. This is the sweetener with aspartame in it. So if you drink diet sodas like Coke Zero or something like that, that uses aspartame. On the sweetener, you can see I'm not using a cup on this. The stuff I got comes in packets, and 24 packets is equivalent to a cup of sugar. So this is actually more than 24, it's closer to 30. All right, so we got our water, our lemon juice, our sweetener, and we'll whisk this up. Okay, that should work. Pour that in, and we get all the same settings. Well, that's interesting. The aspartame worked pretty good. That's kind of strange. I wasn't expecting that because if you use like a Diet Coke or something like that that's got aspartame in it as a sweetener, it won't slush like this unless you add other things to it. So maybe there's a little something extra in those equal packets that help. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, that doesn't even want to come out of here. This is coming out about as thick as the sugar one did, which is okay because that tasted great. There's how that looks. This is really chunky though. I mean, this sort of looks like the way you get a slushie if you just stuck some stuff in your blender with some ice. And taste wise, kind of sucks actually. Yeah, got that equal aftertaste. Not great. Okay, next up is the saccharin, or the sweet and low. This stuff is the same as the equal, whereas 24 packs is equal to 1 cup of sugar. I'll tell you what, I wasn't very enthusiastic about this even working, but after that equal test, maybe it will, I don't know. Okay, get that saccharin in there. Of all of the sweeteners, saccharin probably has the worst reputation. For those of you that don't know, the sweet and low and the equal are the two totally synthetic sweeteners that we're using here. Everything else comes from natural sources. How much healthier they are, that's for somebody else to say, but I use them and I'm not dead yet, so there's that.
You serious?
Here we go. I'm making a mess every single time I pour this in. And again, all the same settings. Okay, the sweet and low version is done. And one thing I noticed about both the equal and the sweet and low versions of this, the machine can't tell how frozen this is, so it doesn't actually shut off. It just keeps going and freezing forever until you turn it off yourself. But it is slushing it up, albeit it's not the nicest result, but it's working. I'm sure with some tweaking, you can kind of get a correct mixture to get this to work a little bit better, but that's not really the point of this video. Anyway, we'll see if this tastes any better than the equal one. It's got the same consistency though. Yeah, this one doesn't even want to come out. You can see it's just a kind of a frozen mass right here. So I got a feeling that this thing just barely was able to do this. If you look at this, it's really separated. I mean, it's pretty close to being chunks of ice in here. It's probably why the machine couldn't really handle it properly. As far as the flavor on this goes, it tastes better than the equal. That chemical weird aftertaste. Yuck. Okay, moving on to the monk fruit sweetener. This is made by a company called Duralife. They do a lot of the natural sweeteners. I like the company. You can get these big 5-pound bags like this for not too much money. Anyway, I go through so much of this stuff that it's kind of worth my while. This monk fruit sweetener is actually a combination of monk fruit extract and erythritol. Okay. I kind of already know what's going to happen here, but I'll let you see it for yourself, because I have tried it before with this. This stuff's a little harder to mix. That's one of the issues with the monk fruit sweetener. It is kind of hard to get out of its granule form. Let's see how this works. You can even hear all the sweetener down there in the bottom of the barrel getting moved around. Sounds kind of creepy. Alright, the machine says we're at freeze level 4 right here, and that is still totally liquid. So we're going to try to crank this up a little bit. For the monk fruit sweetener, I had to set the machine way up at the top here, and this is about as high as it's going to go. Every time I try to push it above that, it keeps defaulting back down. So it's getting this stuff as cold as it can. You can see right in the middle here too that it has a whole bunch of stuff that's just starting to freeze onto the cooling unit. That's going to mess the paddle up if I keep running it that way. So this is about as good as it's going to get for this. Let's see how this comes out. You can see it's got some chunks floating around in here too. But that looks pretty good. Really runny. And I think those chunks in there are just bits of sweetener that wouldn't dissolve. See, there it is for you. And there's a chunk of that, whatever that is. I mean, it has to be the sweetener, there's nothing else in this. Yeah, that's just a frozen chunk of sweetener. It tastes good though, and it looks good. It's just barely doing this though. Remember, we're doing a really simple recipe here, just making some frozen lemonade. If you put a more complex recipe in there, you're probably gonna get a lot worse results than this. Anyway, that's not too bad. Next up, stevia. Probably everybody watching this has heard of stevia, so don't need to explain that one too much. But this is a combination of stevia leaf extract and maltodextrin. Okay, there's our lemon juice and our stevia. Oh, that's not wanting to mix very well, does it? Okay, let's get it in there before this separates. Okay, let's do this. On this, you can already see we're running into major trouble. Everything is just freezing up on the cooling unit in the middle, and we're not really getting any slush at all on the rest of this. So we're gonna try to do something to help this a little bit. First, I'm gonna turn the cooling unit portion of it off. Actually, I'll just stop it. I'm gonna let this defrost a little bit to get that off of there, because I don't want to break this machine. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of vegetable glycerin. If you're using glycerin for food, make sure that you're using food grade glycerin. And we'll just mix this up really good. And we'll add this into our mix. Now I'm just gonna let this defrost for a little bit longer and then I'll start it up again. I had to crank the temperature all the way up to the top, and it's already sitting at the coldest really it will go because it won't let me go to that top one. So we're just gonna go ahead and check this out now and see how it comes out. It looks good, very thin, it's super watery, but it is slushed, and this is probably the way a lot of you like it. Tastes pretty good actually. Normally I don't like stevia too much because it's got a little bit of an aftertaste, but I don't taste that at all in here. So with a little bit of coaxing, that one worked. Okay, now we're moving on to xylitol. Xylitol actually comes from birch trees. I haven't really used this on anything else myself, so this should be pretty interesting. Ooh, this doesn't dissolve well at all. Actually dissolves worse than the monk fruit. Whoa, that sounds terrible. Okay, results on the xylitol. It's not as super thick as it could be. I could probably cool it down a little bit more and it'll freeze it a little bit better, but I really don't think that I need to. This actually looks pretty good. I didn't have to crank the temperature way up or anything, and I didn't have to add anything to it either. Let's see how this came out. See, it's got good texture. Like I said, it's a little bit thin, but this is also the way the vast majority of people like slushies. Oh, and it tastes good. This one tastes the most like sugar from the baseline. So I'm gonna call that a win. This is delicious. Okay, next up is the Apriva. You would probably know this better as Splenda. And the main ingredients in this are maltodextrin and sucralose. If I remember right, the sucralose is actually a derivative of actual sugar. So this is not like a naturally occurring thing or anything, but it's not supposed to be as bad for you. We got our lemon juice again. In goes the Splenda. That looks kind of cool going in there, doesn't it? And into the machine. That actually mixed really good. And you know the rest. Okay, it's looking like the Splenda is doing the same thing that the stevia did. You see all that frozen right there. This is actually worse. I'm just gonna put in some glycerin, wash that down a little bit. I'll try this again. This looks like it's ready to go. All of that stuff that was frozen on the middle is gone, so the glycerin took care of that. I didn't have to crank the cold up as high on this either. So this came out a little bit better than that stevia, I think. Texture looks about the same though. See, that looks not bad at all. This is probably one of the top ones. It's really sweet too, this is good. Okay, second to last one we got here is erythritol. And this is naturally derived from plants. In fact, you've probably had this before because it's typically an additive in other sweeteners as well. So if you see it in the ingredient list for something, then you know what it is. I can hear it on the bottom not dissolving, so probably gonna take a couple of tries to get it all into the machine. I'm gonna spill this. Yep. Yeah, this doesn't dissolve well at all. All right, let's do it. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Alright, this looks like this is about as good as it's gonna get. I kept cranking the freeze level up a little bit because it was still really runny. You can see now that it's starting to freeze in the middle, so I better not crank that up anymore. So we're gonna call this finished. But it does look really good. That doesn't look bad at all. Kind of a little bit on the runny side, but that's okay. Not as sweet as the other stuff though. So this would need a lot more sweetener, because that actually tastes pretty sour right now. Before I started this, I even cranked up the amount that I put in to compensate, and it's still a little bit weak. It's not bad, it's just not as sweet as the others. Okay, we're on to our last one, and that would be allulose. This is the most popular one today. And if you're wondering what this is, it's a naturally occurring sugar that comes out of fruits. And a lot of times when you get this, there's nothing mixed with it. It's just straight up allulose. And that's the case for this too. The only thing with this is that, well, at least for me, that gives me lots of stomach problems if I have too much. What? Okay. Let's do it. Alright, looks like our allulose is done, and this looks pretty darn good. I increased the freeze level by 2 just to get this a little bit fluffier and thicker. It was fine before, but I wanted to see what I can do with this, and I think this looks pretty good. So let's try this out. You can see I'm a fan of the thicker texture. That may not be your thing, but that's okay. And there's how that looks. Looks pretty good. Yeah, that tastes really great. I think this might be the best one other than the sugar. So you can see I was able to get everything to work, I just had to coax a few things with some glycerin. If you want to know what I think was best to worst, I would say that the xylitol was probably the best aside from actual sugar, and right behind that was allulose. I think the allulose fluffed up a little bit more the way I like it, but the xylitol had a nice sweet flavor to it. Below those was the agave nectar. That tasted good, but the flavor of agave just kind of clashes with the lemonade a little bit. And below that was the erythritol and the monk fruit sweetener. I put both the sucralose and the stevia down below that, seeing as how they needed extra help to work, but I ranked the Splenda slightly higher than the stevia because the stevia's flavor is just kind of weird. And then down at the bottom I put the saccharin and the aspartame. Neither one of those needed extra help in order to slush, but I think it had more to do with the other chemicals that are in that than the actual sweetener itself. One other note about both of those is that yes, they did slush without help, but the quality of it was kind of weird and the flavor is just terrible on both of those. Were you surprised by any of the results? Let me know down in the comments. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Ninja Slushi that I used for these tests, I do have an Amazon affiliate link for it down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay, 1 cent. Hey, Joe's Phenomenal now has channel memberships. For most people, you can see a join button down below the video window that you can click and see what type of perks I'm offering. If you're using an iOS device, you might not be able to see it, and if that's the case, I do have a link down in the description of the video as well. If you like this video, then you might like this video right here where I compared making a slushie in a Ninja Slushi versus a Ninja Creami ice cream maker. That one was pretty fun and I think you might enjoy it. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.